All right, we have the logo scaling inside the header, which is great. But now we want to vertically center the logo inside the header as best we can. You know, vertical centering is a pretty common problem, actually, and there's a handful of different options and solutions for actually achieving this, centering an object vertically inside of another object, specifically centering a div vertically inside of another div. Bunch of different ways to do it. I'm going to show you one possibility. And my option, my solution is going to begin with a temporary background color. So give me just a second here. Head back to your code. Go ahead and look for your logo ID selector. And this is where I'm going to throw on my temporary background color. I'm going to use a solid green this time, something like this, just so that we can visually see the logo inside of our div. Now, I'm not getting my temporary green background color coming up here inside ScreenFly. Let me check the actual browser. Give me just a second to scale this guy down. There's the green background color. You know what's interesting with ScreenFly? This is sort of an unscheduled detour. Sometimes ScreenFly doesn't refresh properly, which is a bit of a pain in the neck. This is one of the downsides of ScreenFly. So the solution that I've been able to come up with anyway, when this sort of thing happens, is to simply reload ScreenFly. I've tried, refreshing, reloading the page this way, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes I close completely out of ScreenFly and start all over again, going back to quirktools.com/ScreenFly, something like this, and then reloading. In my case, it's localhost. There we go. And then back to one of my tablet devices. There's the green background color. It's an oddity. It doesn't happen very often with ScreenFly, but it has come up for me in the past. So maybe it's a good thing that it happened at this point in time so I could show you how to actually get ScreenFly behaving correctly. Anyway, thus concludes the unscheduled detour. So I throw on the temporary background color, again, just so I can see the div, so I can see exactly where he's residing there, okay? Now, because we're talking about the vertical centering, vertical, of course, relates to height, you can see that the height of the div is much taller than the actual logo graphic itself. So what I'm going to do back inside my code, back inside my logo ID selector, is I'm also going to set a height on this fella. And setting a height is required for this approach to work, for this vertical centering approach to work. So I'm going to go height 50%. And I'll show you what that looks like here back inside ScreenFly. There we go, something like this. So I can clearly see that the logo is not vertically centered inside the container div, which I also threw, of course, that 20% temporary background color onto. All right, now, what next? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw on some margin. This is all on the same ID selector, the logo here. I'm going to throw on some margin. I'm going to say margin :space auto, okay? And then the other thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to throw on a positioning value, a position of absolute, okay? And then further to that, I'm also going to set a top, left, bottom, and right value. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go top :space 0, followed by a semicolon. Left is also going to be 0, followed by a semicolon. Bottom, :space, you guessed it, 0, and right, any guesses? That's also going to be 0, okay? That should do the job for us. Go ahead and save up your work and head on back to ScreenFly and refresh there. And now it looks like a jumbled mess, doesn't it? But the logo actually is centering. He's centering to the left and also to the right, and also vertically up and down. Now, to be able to see this a little more clearly, give me just a moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to my code one more time, and I'm going to take my menu and I'm going to disable the display of the menu. Now, this is something that I'll go into more detail about later on, but for the menu itself, I'm simply going to say display. Whoops, if I can spell display, there we are. Display :space none, which will actually deactivate the menu for us. If I go and refresh, there's our logo now centered both horizontally and vertically inside the header, which is great. Now, at this stage of the game, you may want to test this on a variety of devices or perhaps in the actual browser, as I'm doing here. It's not absolutely perfectly centered. You can see here when I start to scale down to a certain point. The logo isn't absolutely perfectly centered inside the header, but it's pretty darn close. You can see that in the actual browser, or perhaps if I go and change the device that I'm using inside ScreenFly, something like this. So again, it isn't absolutely 100% bang on, but it's close enough for our purposes. So there you go. They're centering the logo for us. Okay, now give me a moment here. I'm going to turn the menu back on because we have to go and wrestle with the menu next. So we'll handle that. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the temporary green background color on the logo as well. Now, if you go and save and refresh your work, it's going to return to sort of a jumbled mess here. So what we'll do in the next exercise is we'll clean things up here a little bit inside of our header, and we'll get our menu happening as well.